This is trying to go beyond Joseph Campbell, but he is the foundation, so I'm not knocking him. I love the guy. Okay, Joseph Campbell. The Way of Art, page 95. Already in the 19th century, on the untamed western plains, a Native American, Black Elk, in a shamanistic vision of himself standing on the summit of a central mountain of the world, which he then knew as was everywhere, though for himself locally, it was Harney Peak, South Dakota, saw that the sacred hoop of his people was one with many hoops that made one circle wide as daylight and as starlight. First of all, real quick footnote from Spirit Science on YouTube channel. I would equate this to the tree of life, the flower of life, the seed of life emblem. Indeed, the idea is fully and even elegantly represented in the Great Seal of the United States, which appears engraved on the back of every dollar bill in our wallets. There's one. There, at the summit of the symbolic pyramid, the world mountain, we see an eye within a radiant, upward pointing triangle. The world eye, God's eye, eye of the spirit. Most people know it as the eye of Oman Ra. It is at that point of rest, stasis, at the summit where the opposed sides come together. So technically, you see, this is not necessarily a triangle because it doesn't have a point, it's cut off. So that's, I think, what he means. Above it is the inscription, Annuit Coeptis. He or it, God, the I, has smiled on our undertaking. Which is adapted from Virgil's Aeneid 9:625. Below, displayed on a scroll, is another inscription, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which everybody equates to a new order of the world. And this is where you get this whole New World Order conspiracy shit. And along the base of the pyramid is a date, 1776, in Roman numerals. Across the bill is an American bald eagle, bearing in its beak a scroll with the inscription E pluribus unum, out of many one, which I equate to fascism or binding rods. That's my own personal thing, which contests with, which doesn't go in line with Joseph Campbell's. Above its head is a radiant solar disk. Enclosing the 13 stars of the original 13 states, 13 being a number signifying transcendence through the spiritual transformation. The stars are symmetrically arranged to suggest a six-pointed symbol known as Solomon's seal, the Star of David, which in India appears in the chakra. You have it, chakra of the heart, right there. And that far predates Judaism, just to clarify. With the chakra 4 of the Kundalini, the center of the spiritual awakening, where it is symbolic of the spiritual condition of one who is, in life, enlightened. For the upward pointing triangle is of the spiritual eye, compare the eye above the pyramid, the downward pointing triangle being of the claims of this temporal world. And the bald eagle is a local American form of the solar eagle, the bird and vehicle of Zeus, Jesus, Jesus. J in ancient Egypt goes all the way back to literally the sun. There's a pharaoh named Jephthah, which is the son of Ra, and Jesus is in true form is the son of Zeus. Symbolic here in the mode of action, in my take, he never asserts that. Joseph Campbell never asserts that. Symbolic here in the mode of action in the field of time of a people inspired by the Spirit. War and peace are represented by the arrows and the laurels in the bird's talons, left and right, and the turn of the bird's head is to the laurel talons. See, now this gives the impression that the bird is looking for peace, but that's the bird looks to his prey. You understand? The bird's looking away from war is not to say that it's renouncing war. The bird is the symbol of war. Its target, its prey, what it's looking to snatch up, the rat, the mouse, the rodent, the snake, is peace, as evidenced by 500 plus years, thousands of years of from Rome, from Greece, all that crap. Anyways, the vision of Black Elk on the symbolic summit of Harney Peak, seen in a sacred manner, as he declared, the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all things as they must live together like one being, had been achieved in the mystic way by an especially gifted shaman. In contrast, the elegant 18th century engraving still to be seen on the back of our 20th century dollar bill represents the realization of the philosophical way pursued by that extraordinary company of deists to whom we owe the establishment in reason of this nation. I obviously contest with this because they're just an element of he calling them deists disassociates them with Abrahamic fascio Abrahamic. I'm even going to go with the fascio erotic, as just to go even deeper into what Abraham represents, because it's important that these deists, they made it the age of consent at 10 years old, because they were all going off of the notion that it's a man's right to not only pop his wife's cherry, but to precondition her popping of the cherry to before she even has the ability to conceive, before she goes into maturity, as a kind of like her own initiation into this crap. Not to mention the way that these deists all had sex with their slaves, and if they made it legal for a white man to have sex with a 10-year-old white girl, it's only one can leave to the imagination what their moral values were when they were determining which slaves they were going to have sex with, because I'm sure they didn't want the dirty woman that had been working already for 18, 15 years. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, then that's the reason of this nation. That's one of the defects I still find in I create in my own psychology against Joseph Campbell. But again, the guy's still a phenomenal figure, composed of elements adapted from a hermetic tradition of great antiquity and universality, undoubtedly assembled from the library of the great learnings of Thomas Jefferson. Its pictorial vocabulary is so little understood today that many people see the word God of the maxim, "In God we trust," to be a reference to the God of the Christian religion, which it is not. And I always point out to people, Christians, that they try to make that claim too, because I do recognize that these deists, that they're deists. I have no problem with them being deists, but that doesn't mean that they're not affiliated with the greater order that that understands the connection between Jesus and Zeus, and therefore also know the true identity of what's equated to God the Father and Abraham. And in God we trust. God is just a phenomenal essence of an expression of power and control, more than any kind of noble humanistic endeavor towards enlightenment or something like that. The essence of enlightenment was power and control, and this is the manifested in slavery and the subjugation of women as well. Because you got to understand, remember, what's women in America are kept from facing the reality, even though millions upon millions of rapes and sexual assaults happen from every order, from the top to the bottom, from the most elite of the elite, from like Donald Sterling, who's his wife. You know, he's cheating with his girl, and his wife comes to his aid for the sake of money, to Hillary Clinton, showing some kind of nobility in kissing the man who's eaten out so many unknown amount of girls and unknown what's still going on, and that's considered some kind of nobility in her, and makes her breaking the glass ceiling of sorts. That historically women were treated lower than slaves by these deists. That's one thing that's missed by these individuals. And Joseph Campbell, I'm not knocking him, but he worked at a women's university in America, so his entire foundation of his identity is not. This is where fame and celebrity comes in. Because of the celebrity and people like George Lucas and all the people that drew from him, and the foundation that he has, that now hoard his work, and they say under the guise of protecting it, they copyright it, and all rights reserved, and they take it away. Like I told my friends, I had two of my good friends, And they were good. They are good friends. It doesn't go away. It's just a new phase of my life, and theirs is at their same stage. But they at the beginning of this year, I found a thing called the Joseph. It was from some guy. I had it saved still, but it was a video interview. It was a radio interview, an audio interview of Joseph Campbell, and it was called The Lost Teachings of Joseph Campbell, and it was one of the most phenomenal engagements that I've ever heard from Joseph Campbell. One of the most open-ended. He was very personal, the most in-depth that I think he's got on his individual life, because most of the time he doesn't talk about himself or his personal surroundings. And then I told my friends, in January, early January, my birthday's February 9th, hey, I only want one thing for my birthday. Try to listen to this at least 5 times. It was an hour, so I said that all I'm asking for is 5 hours out of the next month for your time, so that on my birthday we can talk about this freely and openly. And the interesting timing of that is that the Joseph Campbell Foundation then pulled it off within 2 weeks of me making that request, and it's now literally Joseph Campbell's lost teachings, and that it is gone, and they don't make it available because they want to protect it, or what, some kind of notion like that. But Joseph Campbell, by all of this aspects, was confined to being American, something that I feel I'm have successfully been able to break through. For the deists, these noble guys, again, for the deists, rejected the idea of the fall, and with that the necessity for redemption, as well as the idea of a special Judeo-Christian revelation. So if they didn't see Judeo-Christianity as a revelation, but at the same time they didn't contest it, they saw it as something towards their ends. They saw it as a means, because they played the public, knowing the effects of Judeo-Christian revelation, which is a psychological phenomena. They did their best to manipulate that and enshrine slavery and the subjugation and degradation of the female, the woman. Man's nature, in their view, is not corrupt, so therefore everything they did was good and right and pure and just, because they created justice through the expression of power. This goes with that William Paley thing. For the William Paley's On the Duty of Submission to Civil Government, 1788, chapters 1 through 6, from Book 5. The idea of God is innate in man's mind from the beginning, so that by reason alone man has arrived everywhere at the recognition which is sufficient. Religious intolerance is blasphemy, since in their primal ground and ultimate sense all religions are one as in mankind. So not all religions, because they know that they were very clear that he kind of gets lost, and I kind of think it's sad here that he's talking about Black Elk. Not all religions were one, because the Native American religions, they weren't of the same, and that was, a lot of people don't understand. It wasn't, racism was not the true foundation of the genocide that's still going on, and the total evisceration of Native American Indian culture, pre-Columbian Indian culture, because the essence of what they believe, Indians believe, is not of the same religion, and that all of that murder and massacre was religious intolerance. And this is where they get this whole notion of getting beyond the Judeo-Christian revelation. And anyways, in the way of art, when followed properly in Joyce's sense, leads to the mountaintop, infinite. The engraving on the back of the dollar bill delivers its message in a work of art, in the way, however, of an illustration of concepts already formed, not as an effective, unpreceding image in itself. Many works of religious art are of this kind. They illustrate legends already known of saints, angels, incarnations, and the like, and they commonly contain, like the deist engraving on the back of the dollar bill, standard symbolic devices which are addressed not to the eye, but through the eye to the intellect, the meaning of which can be known only to those already familiar with the illustrated traditions. That's the mystery schools that Plato was the first one, according to Campbell, Plato was the first figure to publicize the mystery schools. But there's a misconnotation there, in that when Plato wrote about the mystery schools activities through the character of Socrates, it was never intended for individuals like us, the plebes, essentially, to have any access to it for reading or whatnot. Such a composition may grace the eye, but in itself it lacks magic, or, as Joyce would say, the radiance, claritas, of an achieved work of proper art. One's heart is waked not by the form of the work but by its content, and if the latter is of a tradition either unknown or deceased, the work may be of interest, like the dollar bill, economically, but it is no longer a work of living art. And I would even say this is why it's put on the dollar bill, on the most widely used. It's not to make people more aware of it. It's to create a nuance, and so that it deprives. Like, I just watched Fahrenheit 451, and it's all about book burning, book burning, book burning. Well, my mom grew up reading book after book after book after book after book after book after book. And there's what I've come to realize is the effect that that had on her. That gives her the implication that she is literally literary competent. She's competent in the literary arts. She has, but the catch is, there's more than one way to burn a book, or to burn the concept of a book. And if you can flood the market, create a market, and then flood the market with books that are written in formats from mystery novels and romance novels that detach completely from all sense of reality. Like, one of my mom's favorite movies was Romancing the Stone and the Jewel of the Nile. I just watched the Jewel of the Nile. And the very essence of the majority of these type of books, and the other one was all of these. At that time, there was a lot of movies about women authors, to raise up women authors and to create a model of a woman author so as to contain her into these into the stratosphere, so that not to go into the outer space, because once you get into outer space you don't make any sense, and then you're not marketable, and then what's the point of writing anything? So within this box, you flood the market with this Patterson type books and Dean R. Koontz and Stephen King, and they're phenomenally mesmerizing, but they actually are a pseudo type of book burning, in that the type of just like a video game, the type of neurons, the avenues, the neurological highways that are used in order to process the information in those books leave the type of neurons necessary to understand what the hell is going on dormant. And therefore, it's not you providing more books, and you're expanding the market, and you're celebrating, wow, look at, we're printing more books than ever, and the new books are compounding so much that they're essentially burning the value of what would be considered greater knowledge. So there's, like I said, there's more than one way. So he gets into this explanation, a couple of things right here, just because they're interesting in the way he puts it out. 1776. So here we have right here, 1776. This is very interesting the way he does this. 1 plus 7, and this is interesting because this is very significant, and I know this is true because this wasn't put on the dollar bill until the 1940s. And even when I read Henry David Thoreau's On the Duty of Civil Disobedience, they didn't refer to the 1776 as the War of Independence. They refer to it as 1779, the year of the victory. So this is using this date has become a transformation kind of throughout time. Mankind, that is to say, so 1 plus 7 plus 7 plus 6 equals 21. Mankind, that is to say, has herewith come of age and taken to itself responsibility and authority for shaping of human lives according to reason. And one of this is very accurate in the psychological sense of what William Paley wrote on the duty of submission to civil government, because this is why you see, without being aware of this, the influence of this is what motivates Southern whites to fight so vehemently to prevent the inclusion or the acceptance of black humanity. This is why they're willing to kill and even bomb, and then with a clear conscience, because you understand, like when those 4 little girls were killed at the Birmingham church and they were blown up, it wasn't, those men did not keep secret what they did, and their family members were not the ones to reveal what happened. And in one sense, there's still no we don't Osama bin Laden those type of figures for a reason, because they're fighting for this. We think that we see it as the black people are fighting for this or for some kind of unity, but in the truth, on the undercore, it was already set in foundation. So anybody that challenges this is actually fighting against reason, is against God, is against the incorruptible, non-fall, non-need of redemption, nothing necessary for redemption. They're fighting against all of this. So I want to say something else. So Joseph Campbell gets into this symbol, and again, I'm just jumping through this because of time wise. So he talks about this. Okay, in the radiant disk above the eagle's bald head, the stars of the original 13 states are composed to form Solomon's seal, symbolic of the union of soul and body, spirit and matter. Each of the interlaced equilateral triangles, one upward turned, the other downward, is a Pythagorean tetrachete, or perfect triangle of fourness of 9 points, 4 to a side, enclosing a tenth representing the generative center, still point of the turning world. Like when the Buddha sitting underneath the Bodha tree and he first reaches he's about to reach enlightenment, the devil's tempting him, Mara is tempting him and saying, okay, do your social duty, do this, do a seductive, what about these girls, what about your social duty, and don't you want to have power? And then the Buddha is in lotus position, touches the ground before him in the immovable spot. And same thing with Don Juan when he first tells Carlos Castaneda, okay, find your spot and then I'll be able to teach you. And Carlos Castaneda rolled around the floor. That's what that's representative. Okay, generative spot of which the other derive its force. The upward triangle. Now this is one thing I want to get into because I got down to 4 minutes. Okay, Joseph Campbell's very fixated on the notion of the triangle going down, and the triangle going up, the male and the female. Now, he points out just one thing. There's 13 stars, there's 13 leaves, there's 13 berries, and there's 13 arrows, there's 13 stripes, and there's 9 tail feathers. He gets into the 9. In the classical imagination, the 9 circumferential points of the Pythagorean, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess that's what he's saying. I don't understand the 9 on the star, to be honest with you, or the 4 to be truthful. Oh, I get the 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I don't even get that. Yeah, 4. Okay, see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So kind of, all right, I get that. Did I get that? 1, 2. No, I don't get that either. So, but what does he say? Okay, he talks about the 9, and he equates the 9 to the 9 muses who dance around Apollo in ancient. He goes into, and this I talked about not too long ago, so that's pretty cool. In the verse of the Chinese Tao Te Chi, the Tao produced 1, 1 produced 2, 2 produced 3, 3 produced all things. Tao Te Chi 42 translation. Thus the ancient symbolism of the tetratychs, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and 4 points. The all is a 4 point. Which series, when read in the opposite direction of ascending or returning to the source, yields a transition, the interesting series 4, 3, 2 of the same sense which we see on page. Okay, but here's one thing. From Spirit Science on YouTube, that talks about the flower of life, the seed of life. This is actually not just going up and down, but that central figure, which is in one sense the self, is being torn. It's not just going up and down. It's going in 6 different directions. It's being torn in 6 different directions. I would even say being torn from the 6 different directions. And one of my own conclusions that I made when reflecting on the flower of life symbol that Joseph Campbell never discusses and never brings up. So it might bring us the ability to question the validity of it in one sense. But from Spirit Science, as I came to realize that the flower of life is a kind of like a genetic code as well, because the central point of the first circle is the individual. It's like how to make a child. You need 6 pairs of parents in order to have the genetical code to make one child. You need the 2 parents of each of the parents' DNA so that they can be created, and thus their DNA combined to make the single circle of creation. and then that expands outward infinitely. And that goes with, in like form, well, I got to close now, with Black Elk's vision of everything in circles, and he saw circles upon circles of circles, and they all blend out. And if you look at spirit science, I believe that it contributes with their thesis, at least in that base.